Good morning and welcome to Beacon Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Summit, New Jersey. My name is Misa Iwama and I am the Director of Music Ministry. We're so glad that you have joined us today. We're going to have the chance to sing, to contemplate the week we just had, get ready for the weeks ahead, and most of all, we have the chance to connect. You might want to say hello in the chat function, or you might want to reach out to a friend and let them know that you are thinking of them today. Whether you're looking as I am at some fluffy snowflakes stirring about, or you might be basking in the warmth of the sun from a completely different location. In either case, we hope that you will all feel the warmth of community. I'm joined by Dr. Tuli Patel, our Executive Director, and Reverend Dr. Robin Tanner, our co-minister. Good morning.
Thank you so much, Misa. Beloved, we begin this morning with a poem by Beacon member Craig Babcock. It's an invitation, an expansive call to worship this day across the universe.
Message in a Bottle by Craig Babcock. Extraterrestrial life, welcome at this location. An invitation to the universe on behalf of a planet called Earth. Open house. Come as you are. No restrictions. Reservations not required. All beings welcome. Mostly water on the outside.
Enveloped in gases and iron-nickel core. Sixth major surface change underway. Looking for the stunning blue ball, white accents in near orbit, a cratered moon. Third out from the speckled yellow dwarf star, close to the edge of a spiral galaxy.
So come, all sentient beings, as the snow falls in this northern hemisphere, corner of one country among many. Come from your separate and yet connected space, here at the edge, at the beginning, and return. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to a song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Open your ears to the song. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
What better place to light a candle than outside in this winter wonderland? So Beacon, let us light our chalice together. We light our chalice for the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the fire of commitment. We light the symbol of our faith in this winter wonderland as we gather together.
Today's story comes to us from Hinduism. It is a story of friendship and risk and what it took for two childhood friends to become friends as adults. The story goes that Krishna, a Hindu god, lived in human form in North India. He is the 8th avatar of the god Vishnu. He is usually shown as being blue in color because his dark skin had a beautiful bluish tint to it. He also is shown playing a flute, as he was a cowherd and played his flute to call the cattle home at night. He has a peacock feather in his headband, and there are many reasons for this. One of them is that peacocks loved to dance when he played his flute. When he was young, Krishna was very naughty, troubling his mother Yashoda and doing things like sneaking butter and cream from the pantry. Yashoda was Krishna's adoptive mother, as his birth mother Devaki had to give him up because her brother was evil and mean and threatened to harm her baby. But that is a longer story for another day. Krishna's very best friend was Sudama. They studied in the same school and spent lots of time with one another. Sudama was not as wealthy as Krishna. Once they got stuck in a rainstorm and Sudama shared his snack of puffed rice with Krishna. He felt embarrassed that he did not have a more extravagant snack to share, but Krishna assured him that it was his favorite. As they grew older, the boys grew apart, as sometimes tends to happen. Krishna went on to become a king, and Sudama was a poor villager and farmer. Things got pretty bad for Sudama and his family. In fact, they got so bad that Sudama's wife Sushila told him to go to the palace and ask his childhood friend for help. Sudama didn't want to do it. He thought it was too risky. Krishna might not recognize him, might not remember their childhood friendship, and he had nothing to offer because there is no way that you approach a king or someone you visit without a gift in hand. Sushila told Sudama it was worth the risk. Things couldn't get any worse, right? She also told Sudama that she had a few bits of saved puffed rice that he could take to remind Krishna of their friendship. Only because he was very desperate, Sudama decided to risk it. Sudama traveled to the palace. He was ashamed of his torn clothes and was very nervous when he got to the palace gates. There he was blocked by the guards. Krishna was passing by and heard the raised voices of the guards. Being a kind and compassionate king, Krishna ordered the guards to let Sudama through. The person he saw before him looked nothing like his childhood friend. But something about the humble person struck Krishna as special. Something stirred in his heart, a distant thread of a friendship long ago. Sudama approached Krishna and gingerly held out the ragged cloth which held the few precious grains of puffed rice. In a flood of excitement, Krishna recognized his childhood friend, and pulling on the memories of their childhood, they embraced. Krishna hugged Sudama, and excitedly they laughed and talked and relived their shared memories. They were so busy chatting that Sudama forgot to tell him how bad things were at home or to ask for help. When Sudama returned home that evening, he couldn't believe his eyes. His wife Sushila was dressed in fine clothes, his pantry was full, and he knew that he would never struggle again. His friend had been faithful and had not forgotten him, even though so much had changed. The risk he had taken had been worth it. Here ends our time for all ages.
Each Sunday at Beacon, we invite you and one another to light a candle of sorrow, joy, grief, and celebration. Maybe you're lighting a candle for gratitude for the blessings of warm hugs we shared with our beloved Beacon community. Maybe you're kindling a light for our siblings in our world that don't have homes to shield them when snow, winds, and rain have their way. You are welcome to light a candle in your home. We hope that you'll also lift up a name in the chat. We also light a candle of witness for LaShanda Anderson, born in 1982, and a resident of Philadelphia. In Anderson's North Philadelphia neighborhood, her family and friends gathered on the step of her home and remembered Anderson as a mother of three who enjoyed karaoke, cooking, and fashion. Her favorite niece, Tracia Way, says, "She was really working hard to get her life together, to provide a good family and a good life." LaShanda died in a body and dash cam-free altercation with police in Deptford Township, Gloucester County, on June 9, 2018. She was only 36. She leaves to cherish her memory, those three precious girls, a very large extended family, including a host of aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, cousins, and friends whose hearts are broken, but they press on and continue to seek justice. We light this candle of witness for LaShanda Anderson. As we begin the month of February, may this ritual of kindling light together and offer us the kindness, solidarity, understanding, and shared meaning in our lives.
Abide with me, fast falls the eventide. The darkness deepens, still with me abide. When other helpers fail and comforts flee, help of the helpless, oh, abide with me. Swift to its close, ebbs out life's little day. Earth's joys grow dim, its glories pass away. Change and decay in all around I see. O thou who changes not, abide with me.
Good morning. Our first reading today is from a Unitarian Universalist, theologian, journalist, and congregational consultant, the Reverend Dr. Thandeka. She is the leader of the We Love Beyond Belief project, and in 1984, Desmond Tutu gave her the Xhosa name Thandeka, which means beloved. She is the founder of affect theology. The legacy of caring. Despair is my private pain, born from what I have failed to say, failed to do, failed to overcome. Be still, my inner self. Let me rise to you. Let me reach down into your pain and soothe you. I turn to you to renew my life. I turn to the world, the streets of the city, the worn tapestries of brokerage firms, crack dealers, personal things in the bag lady's cart, rage and pain in the faces that turn from me, afraid of their own inner worlds. This common world I love anew as the lifeblood of generations who refuse to surrender their humanity in an inhumane world. Course through my veins from within this world, my despair is then transformed to hope, and I begin anew the legacy of caring. Here ends our reading.
We enter into this month with the theme of risk, not at first consideration, an easy topic for meditation. I invite you in these moments, beloved, to consider what or for whom you would take a great risk. We'll begin with our breath if that is a place of ease for you. If breath is hard to find, I invite you instead to focus in on an object, an image, or a movement, like tracing a spiral with your finger, moving in and then retracing your way out again. For those who are breathing, let our breath draw in to the count of 3 and exhale to the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, and out. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now here in this space of grounding and calm we've created, call to mind someone, or perhaps a value that you hold dear. If a person comes to mind, allow the fullness of them to be present. Their voice, their smell, the way they move in a space, or the clothing they wear. If a value comes to mind, discover where in your body this value lives. Is it heart-centered, head-oriented, grounded in hands or even stomach? Center in now to the strength of this guiding value or person. And then check in. Is there a risk or action you are called to at this time? Is there a decision that you can seek clarity for in this space? Now drawn once more by the breath, or a spiral movement with finger or object in the room, come back to this time and place. Thank you for this time. The light in me acknowledges the light within you. Namaste, and blessed be, beloved.
Hello, I'm Kit Stinson.
And I'm Dick Muldoon.
We live in Gillette, New Jersey, and we came to Beacon through two very different routes. Mine was a journey home, and Dick's was a journey he never thought he'd be taking. I grew up in the Unitarian Church in Summit. It was one of the most important and valuable experiences of my childhood and youth. So when we came back to New Jersey, after several decades away, and it was time for me to go church shopping, Beacon wasn't on my list. I couldn't imagine how the Beacon of today could compare to the memories I had from the Unitarian Church. So I bounced around and visited a whole lot of churches, and then I finally said, well, I guess I'd better give Beacon a shot. It would only be fair. So I did. It was the last shot I had to take. It was everything that I remember and love about my experience at the Unitarian Church, and it was everything that a modern spiritual community needs to be. And I was sold immediately, and that was it. Now, Dick's journey was different.
Unlike Kit, I'm still very new to Beacon. I wouldn't be here at all if I hadn't had to drive Kit to services for a while. I came in out of curiosity. I kept coming in because of the kindness of everyone that I met and because of the values that everyone shared, and because of the good that the Beacon community was doing in the world around us. I hadn't been looking for a spiritual community or one committed to social justice, but when I found one in Beacon, I realized I wanted to be a part of the Beacon community. So I'm here as a latecomer, but even so, it's obvious to me that we create this community together.
Our mission comes alive through our relationships, our voices, our songs, and our gifts. Now we move into a time where we give generously to support how that mission comes alive in our lives and in the world. In a minute, you'll see ways to contribute to Beacon. We invite you to participate in this practice of generosity. We know firsthand it does make a difference. Thank you. Over 7 months ago, I went to the doctor with complaints of headaches and extreme fatigue, as well as hair loss. My primary doctor wasn't available, and so the on-call doc entered the room, head down, reviewing my symptoms, and then looked up and asked,
Is your life stressful? I chuckled, the kind of laugh that one has that arises when confronted with absurdity. A global pandemic, rising fascism, 4 children, including 2 with breathing disorders, and all of the regular stressors. Seriously? He changed his tone of voice, getting quieter, softer, suggesting that I make more me time. Had I tried meditation? I left not quite believing what I had heard, these very real symptoms reduced to lady headaches. Flash forward several months later, and my symptoms suddenly disappeared. Then this past week, I went for my annual physical with my regular doctor, my primary care provider, who remarked upon looking at my chart, "When you came back in all those months ago, did they ever test you for antibodies for COVID-19? I will go and get a blood test this week to find out if indeed I was experiencing long haul symptoms." I shared this all with my spouse, who recalled how sick I was in January with what we both thought was the flu. And she said, "Wouldn't it be ironic with how worried you've been about getting COVID-19 if you had already had it?" Risk. I'm sure, like many of you, you have lived with constant daily risk assessments since at least the start of this pandemic. Many of these risk calculations were vital, essential, and I personally do not regret the caution I've lived with. Some of those listening to my words, we have spent a lifetime calculating risks, inhabiting identities, stories, families, or professions where risk calculation was necessary and where risk was often not a chosen part of our lives. If you peruse the internet, though, and TED Talks in particular, you will find no shortage of videos and counsel to risk it all, be brave, make the big change, follow your heart. So much of American culture and the narrative of America is built on these stories of rugged individuals with brave hearts. It feeds right into our exceptionalism myth that has often wrought such devastation. That those who risk big win big, ignoring the truth of who gets to risk and who must navigate the perils daily. Against the backdrop of this Robin Hood risk, sorry, I couldn't resist, is the more likely experience that many of us have with risk. One that is not a pack your bags to move across the world call, but a close-up, microscopic, and tenacious one. I recently watched the movie Bliss, a movie about 2 individuals navigating the world, perhaps 2 worlds, one that is presented as a fictional creation, a cyber kind of world, and the other real world. Spoiler alert, it can be a metaphor for addiction, choosing between the real world and the delusional one, having to use blue crystals and yellow crystals to navigate. In the end, the central couple, the protagonists, if you will, in the story must decide each for themselves what they will risk. Losing the world that is perfect and delusional and not so perfect beneath the surface, or staying in the one that is hard and painful, and where a very real family member is calling for them to come back. I won't spoil the ending. But this, beloved, this is the risk we are far more likely to encounter. And many of us have navigated in these months micro, daily, and cumulative risks that form a life, take a life, and alter a life forever. Our faith is one that for many involved risk-taking, formed by the heresies or choices of spiritual ancestors who declared against an orthodoxy that God was one, that love saved all, that we were interconnected, that castes were false teaching, that sexuality was not sinful, that we were not inherently bad or marked, that love could be trusted, and equity and equality were possible now. For some of us, we navigated worlds in which these heresies, these choosings of our conscience and deeper truths meant life-altering consequences. We risked what was perhaps familiar for a community, an inner knowing. Perhaps we didn't know how Unitarian Universalism would change us. Maybe you were raised in this faith and there wasn't a heresy to be proclaimed, but perhaps you had to choose this faith, or more precisely, the people, when they failed you. Reverend Mary Harrington was a Unitarian Universalist minister who served congregations from San Francisco to Massachusetts, as well as in the community. I met Reverend Harrington when I went to New Orleans to help with Katrina relief. She had started service trips shortly after the hurricane hit, just within weeks, and continued them well after her diagnosis with ALS in 2006. Reverend Harrington had already developed symptoms of her ALS by the time that I met her. She was not accustomed to slowing down. In fact, she was and is a bit of an epic figure. And she found in those years a new ministry and speed. And then she decided to move back to Sheepscott, Maine, somewhat suddenly, to my vantage point. She created a blog about her experiences, and 2 days before she died, she wrote this final post. Nothing ever really ends. I see this in the marsh, where things certainly change, but they don't stop. The colors provide a continuing lesson in how the color green, for example, can become greener or greenish or green-like or sort of green, depending upon the day, the season, and the light. So what does this have to do with loose ends, she asks. Well, in my life as a person, I have stretched myself toward certain goals, such as the kind of spouse, mother, sibling, and friend I long to be for those people in my sphere. Once in a while, I have had the particular thrill of feeling I had gotten something just right. And perhaps I did. But it only lasts such a short time. And then there's the next day or month. And so I can never become a truly purely good anything. Which leads to the realization that even if you could try with all of your might to hold on to one of those glorious connections, it just couldn't last. This makes leaving hard. Wanting so much to find the moment when all is well in every part of my life and with every person in it. Instead, I have to settle for knowing that at a certain point, things will simply stop where they do. And my ability to improve, repair, refine, or finish will have to be sufficient and enough. She concludes, this is why I rest my eyes on the marsh. The slow, languorous, drawn-out days fill me with a little bit of peace and solace. My hope is that I too will sail off on such a gentle, peaceful current as my friends, the geese and ducks do, leaving behind whatever loose ends in my little ducky toes didn't have time to complete. But knowing that my people will come with me in my heart. I think about Reverend Harrington and the risk to go home after taking the risk to also do work that matters. going home mattered too. And her public journal of her experiences have taught a new generation of religious leaders that never even knew her. What would she have risked if she never went home and pushed to the end in New Orleans? I turn to her words when I long to escape the work that is real and here, the world that is right before me. The snow piling up, the emails turning with hope and critique, the children wailing and celebrating and challenging, and the world never done, and sometimes me undone. Certainly the risk of bold departure can be appealing, and the temptation to dream of elsewhere. My go-to lately is a small cafe in the highlands of Guatemala where I make coffee as a barista, all alone. Anyhow, where was I? Right, the inadequacy of fantasy. But what of the risk to stay here, beloved? Here in the daily, to face the fears and with honesty, to declare what will inhabit my heart as I navigate this world. What will I lose if I always run and take flight in this false story of rugged reinvention? Perhaps it is time for yet one more heresy in the chapter of our faith's book. One that tells of staying in the complexity, of navigating the fears, following who we love, not what we are told to love. The classic Risk story tells us to follow a what? A fantasy, a dream that is about a siloed existence. But life is never siloed. My goodness, have we learned that by now? In the words of James Baldwin, one can give nothing whatever without giving oneself. That is to say, risking oneself. If one cannot risk oneself, then one is simply incapable of giving. It's so easy for me to fear a life without the big risk that it will mean I'll get swallowed up or lost or devoid of meaning. But what if the meaning is in the risk to be here? Really here. Every day. As we consider re-entry, I choose this heresy, that I will risk staying, caring, and returning home, even yet to risk myself. In the words of the Unitarian Universalist theologian, Reverend Dr. Tandeyeka, that we began with, I turn to the world, the streets of the city, the worn tapestries of brokerage firms, crack dealers, private estates, personal things in the bag lady's cart, rage and pain in the faces that turn from me, afraid of their own inner worlds. This common world I love anew, as the lifeblood of generations who refuse to surrender their humanity in an inhumane world courses through my veins. Indeed, let the lives we lead speak for us. Let our hearts race with the ordinary miracles of the everyday, and let our community proclaim the prophethood of all people.
May the work I've done speak for me. May the work I've done speak for to the end of this road and I lay down this heavy load, may the work I've done speak for me. Let the life I've lived speak for me. Let the life I've lived speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down this heavy load, let the life I've lived speak for me. Let the friends I've made speak for me. Let the friends I've made speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down this heavy load, let the friends I made speak for me. Let the love I've shared speak for me. Let the love I've shared speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down this heavy load, let the life I've lived speak for me. Let the friends I've made speak for me. Let the love I've shared speak for me.
Go into your week, beloved, with your ears pitched to the sound of creation's voice calling your name, with your eyes peeled looking out for the face of love in unexpected places, with your soul poised to receive the spirit of goodness. Go into your week, beloved, to share the spirit of grace in blessed moments of quietness, with light in your darkness, strength in your weakness, grace in your faults and errors, with joy in your gladness and peace in your stillness. Go into your week, beloved, holding fast to that which is good, rendering to no person evil for evil. Offer strength to the faint-hearted, support to the weak, and help the needy and afflicted, honoring all people, for we are those people too, so that each of our days are blessed.